Hello and welcome to the B-Roll Film Club.
A movie review podcast without the pretentious critics. We are your hosts, Emma, Jessica, and Scott.
This episode, we're discussing Arrival and Interstellar. We hope you've watched both films and you're ready to dive into our review. Before we get started, I'd just like to remind you that we announce our chosen films on Twitter, where you can follow us at B-Roll Film Club.
And you can use our email, thebrollfilmclub@gmail.com, to send your thoughts and reviews, which we may discuss in our episodes.
Lastly, before we get started, please be warned that we will be discussing the plots of these films in full, so this is your spoiler alert. Please make sure you have watched these films, and if not, pause this podcast and come back once you have.
Okay, just before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to a podcast that I'm listening to right now. So it's that Superhero Thing podcast. You can follow them at Superhero Thing on Twitter. So they basically do reviews of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, plus they give updates on all things Marvel, DC, any comic really. So if you're liking anything like that, join that review podcast. So our first film up is Arrival. So we've got director Denis Villeneuve. The screenplay is by Eric Heiser, and it's based on the short story by Ted Chiang, which is Story of Your Life. Who wants to give their first thoughts on that?
I absolutely loved this film. The first time I watched it, I was on the edge of my seat throughout it, trying to wonder what was happening. They set it up really well, using a tell and not show kind of approach to the alien spacecrafts that come and invade use that term loosely, the Earth. So you don't actually know what's happening until the main character is going up into the spaceship, which is pretty cool. I really like that detail because we don't really get a lot of that in films, I don't think.
No, we don't.
The use of language to learn from them and communicate was really good, instead of going in like guns blazing and like fighting it off, which is kind of common for a lot of alien films.
Yeah.
So that was a new approach for me anyway, first time watching this. That was really good. Got very attached to Abbott and Costello. So I liked how they built up the relationship with the characters and them, because it made me get attached to them as well.
Yeah.
So I really liked it. I thought that was really good and really well done.
What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I'd say the same. I really enjoyed this film. And you know me, I love sci-fi films.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a big sci-fi buff. But no, I really, really enjoyed this one. Totally different to what I would normally watch. Because, like, normally I'd say, like, aliens in it, I'd be like, oh god, it's like another Alien versus Predator thing or something, or it's going to be all guns blazing, like what you're saying. But no, it was nice to have something that wasn't all about shooting and killing and taking over. It was actually about communicating and about,
I feel like it was a more mature approach.
yes, it was a more mature approach than that. It was like trying to teach somebody about yourself while they're trying to teach you about them, which I found was quite poetic, because it's like we're trying to do that throughout our whole lives, know somebody, but we never truly know them in a sense. But it's kind of like that with the aliens, how they built that rapport with those two.
Yes, yeah.
And how they ended up trusting each other enough, which I thought was beautiful.
Yeah, I thought it was very good.
What about you, Jessica?
Yeah, so I loved this film too. I remember I really wanted to go see it at the cinema, but I thought that it was going to be like a scary film. I thought it was going to be like the whole like alien invasion, like very creepy sort of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't expect such an intellectual film, which it is. And also, like, the spaceships in it, they basically had this night terror when I was little that I got abducted by aliens. And the spaceships looked very similar.
All right, okay.
So when I saw that in the trailer, I was just like, nope, not going to watch that. Yeah. So I put it off for ages. And then I just put it on Amazon one night when I couldn't sleep. So I just put it on in the middle of the night. And I couldn't believe, like, what a beautiful film it was. Very well directed. I loved the sound in it. Yeah. Not just the music, but also so like when they're in the hazmat suits.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to hear, like, through the radio, like there's the crackling on the radio and everything, and the sound's not that great. The heavy breathing while they're in the hazmat suits, and the sort of echoey noise that you get through it.
Yeah.
And the sound of the aliens make which I don't think they ever actually said whether that was them talking or not. I think their assumption was that they didn't really have a spoken language, they just had a written language. But that noise that they made,
the rumbling,
that was really cool. I liked that.
I liked it too.
And I like the look of the aliens. It's something completely different than what we usually see in films. Usually they're very like humanoid looking, or they are very scary looking. Whereas these kind of reminded me more of like less flimsy octopuses.
I know what you mean.
Octopi. That's, but well, you think at first, like when you see them behind that screen, but I love when you actually see Louise go meet Costello, that they turn out to be these massively tall things.
Yeah, you only seen
you never saw before. So that was really cool. Look, so I like that because also like if something's from a completely different planet, we can't assume that they would look like us because if their atmosphere and everything's completely different, then it would make sense that they would be
they'd be different,
designed completely different. And visually, the film's very beautiful. I love the heptapods language, like the written language. That's beautiful. The circles. So yeah, really love this film. Wish I'd saw it in the cinema. So we're just gonna. I've just picked out some points for us to have a wee chat about. If you don't have anything to add on to it, don't worry. One thing I wanted to talk about was the opening and ending scene. So not scene, sorry, the opening sequences and the closing sequences of the film. And the music that's played on it, which anyone who watches this film probably thinks, I know that music. Like, what is that music? I've heard it like a million times before. So it's On the Nature of Daylight and it's by Max Richter. And basically, because they put this song in the film, the original score for the film couldn't get put forward for like awards, couldn't get contend for awards because they'd put another composer's song into their film. Which is a bit of a shame for the composer. So the composer on arrival, by the way, was Johan Johansson. And I don't know if that was his decision, or if it was Denis' decision, or if it was someone completely different. Like, I don't know who made that decision. I mean, you don't make films for awards anyway.
Yeah.
But a bit of a shame.
I know.
That basically, just completely lost the chance to get any sort of accolades for that score.
It's really good.
Because it's a good score, like that disturbing sort of noise when they're first, when they're in the helicopters and they're first coming to see the spaceship. And it's the same bit of music that plays right at the end. It's a very like unnerving piece of music. So that's really good. But On the Nature of Daylight, been used in a million TV shows and films. Like literally, if you found it on IMDb, which I'm sure you probably would be able to look up the song itself, it would have tons of stuff under it because it's literally in I hear it all the time. But I'm gonna go out and say that this is the best use of it I've ever seen in film or TV. It just works so beautifully with that opening sequence, and like the closing sequence is pretty much the same as the opening sequence. You're seeing the same sort of stuff, but you're seeing more of it.
You're actually seeing the complete story of it.
Yeah, exactly. It reveals, because obviously after the big reveal, you realise what's happening, so it shows you more of the story. But like every time I hear, despite the fact that it's been played in countless films and TV shows, every time I hear On the Nature of Daylight, like that opening and closing sequence, like just flickers through my head. Like I can see the entire thing, and I can even hear the monologue that goes over the top of it at the start. So I think that's probably like the best use of that song. And I love and it's the same in another film that we're going to discuss later, the opening sequence and the closing sequence kind of merge together. So it sort of comes back around, like it's like a full circle.
Yes, yeah.
Just wanted to know what your guys' thoughts were on that and conveying the story, and obviously the reveal.
I really like the music in it. That one track that I would say is like the theme tune of the film, if it had to have one, was really good.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was unnerving, so it kind of fit the tone of the film, especially what they were setting at the start. As well, where you don't know what's happening, and you don't know what these things are and what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, it kind of has that mystery of it. It creates the mystery of it, the music, as you go on. And I think the music was very well used throughout the whole film. It wasn't like overly used, and it was used because sometimes you get films in which I feel like they just shove in music anywhere. and you're like, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, but with these ones, it really did.
Oh god, yeah, down to a T.
Yeah, even like in the opening and closing scene as well, when it all sort of comes together and you finally realize what's been happening. Like you get clues throughout it, which ties everything
Oh,
together.
you say you get clues, but you just assume, because it's
You do,
what you
yeah.
see at the start, you assume she's having flashbacks, like these things are reminding her.
Yeah.
Because, like, when the little girl's, when she's, like, playing in water and she's got, like, the stick, poking the water with the stick is shaped very similar and looks very similar to the heptapod's legs.
Yeah.
So you just think, oh, like, these things are reminding her.
Yeah.
And it's not really till like near the very end. I mean, unless you're an absolute genius, maybe you did work it out. I don't know. Some people might have, but it's not till near the very end when she sees, like, they're having that discussion. I don't know I can't remember what they're talking about. I think they're talking about the fact that like China and Russia are gonna blow everyone up or some nonsense.
Yeah,
that's about right.
And she closes her eyes and she sees herself like in the spaceship, like the misty stuff, like going through her hands. So she sees that, and she sees the little pod that comes down from the spaceship, because obviously by that point the spaceship's moved farther into the sky, so they can't get the cherry picker up into it. So she also sees that pod coming down, and then you see her going to it. And on first view, and I didn't even question that. I wasn't even like, oh, she's seen what's about to happen here. Like when you say it, I didn't even question it. I don't know why. Like I was just running with it, and then it wasn't until like she was actually in the spaceship and had the conversation with Costello. And you're like, oh my god, like she was seeing like the future.
Yes.
And then you obviously realise that little girl also was the future, not her past, whereas you think like she's already had a marriage and a child who's passed away, like already before the start of the film, sort of thing, before the start of the story. So I really liked that.
Yeah, it tied it all up very well, and I like how it was intended to be seen as a memory. And then when she goes to talk to Costello, then you're like, oh, right, okay. And then everything plays out, and you're like, right, these were actually premonitions. They weren't the past.
Yeah. When she says to Costello, like, I don't understand, who's this child? And you're like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, then it's when it's, like, properly dawns, and you're like, oh my god. And then obviously she says, when she gets back from meeting Costello, she says to Ian, I know why my husband left me. And he's like, oh, you were married?
Yes.
And then, like, you already know, you kind of already know. I feel like maybe some people, it might not have clicked yet, because I don't think the proper big reveal...
No, but she hints to
until
it.
the very end when she sort of talks through it, like, despite knowing where the journey will end, like, I embrace it sort of thing.
I was going to say that, yeah, I noted that quote down.
Well, it's not till, like, kind of then that you realise that Ian is the father of her child.
Yeah.
But I really liked that. I thought it was a really good reveal. It, like, absolutely caught me off guard. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Me too.
And that's what I really liked about it.
I kind of felt like throughout the whole, like, not like the whole film, but like most of it, she kind of knew what she was seeing, but she wasn't entirely sure.
Well, she never really questioned it.
No, she never really questioned it at all.
She did say, she was like, I'm overworked. So I think she was just, and then they had the conversation about seeing the aliens in their dreams because they're there that much. So I think she chalked it up to like stress or overwork.
Yeah.
She never had that conversation though. That was a dream.
No. But she also did say, she was like...
You just go, what?
Yeah. Oh.
It's got layers. You think that's what's happening. Remember, so she's having that conversation with Ian, and like, oh, like, are you dreaming in their language, sort of thing? And she was like, I can't remember what she says. Basically, says like, yeah, but like that doesn't mean I'm not fit to do the job or something. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if it's Costello or Abbott that appears in her room, and then she wakes up. So that's actually a dream as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's very strange.
There's a subconscious,
strange but wonderful,
maybe.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Because she also says that, like towards the end of the film, she kind of says that the weapon that they keep referring to is their language, and that their language. Well,
she realizes that afterwards, after Costello tells her, like the weapon is
he kind of explains why they're there, because they're there to tell humanity they need help in like 3,000 years.
Yeah.
But that's when she also kind of realizes that weapon is actually their language. But also,
but she already says to the person, like, they might not be able to
differentiate. Yeah,
between a weapon and a tool, which
Yeah.
is exactly what the kind of issue is.
Yeah.
but she also said that after that, she said something about their what's it? Time doesn't flow the same as what it does for humans. So their perception of
Yeah.
time is totally different to what it is for
Yeah,
us.
theirs is non-linear compared to ours. Just talking about sort of like the whole weapon tool thing, wanted to highlight the sort of fear of the unknown that it seems to be like the perspective of the intellectuals, so like all the university people seem to be there, you know, for language and math, physics, science, just all these people. They are very excited about the aliens and they want to learn from them. Whereas the people that are, I don't think Halpern's military, is he not CIA or something? Agent Halpern. But basically, anyone that comes from sort of a police or military background are very like distrusting of the aliens, and they just seem to think that they want to annihilate them at every stage. Like that's always where their mind goes. And I feel like Agent Halpern and General Shang are probably like epitomize that, like the distrust of the aliens, because they take everything wrong. Because obviously, when the aliens say there is no time, like there's that message you hear from the Russian guy, and he says like the aliens had said that there is no time, and they took that as there's no time, like they're about to attack or they're about to destroy the Earth. Whereas what they meant was there's no like time as you perceive it, like in it's not linear. Our time is non-linear, and if you learn our language, aka the weapon that they were offering, then you will be able to perceive time the same as us. But I like that sort, because I think that is what would happen, unfortunately, if there was another alien race that managed to get here. Which, let's go on record and say, there's not. Spoiler alert, there's no UFOs flying around there. You're all crazy. There's definitely other life in the universe. I don't think they've worked out how to get here, but if they did, unfortunately, if it was anytime soon, I think this would be the response we would take, whereas we would go and all guns blazing, which is stupid, because if anything's able to get to here and we're not able to get out or even halfway through our own solar system, then they're clearly much, much farther ahead than we are. So
get annihilated.
Don't start stuff with something you can't beat. But I think that is the approach we would take, sadly. We probably wouldn't listen to the intellectual people that are like on board with the whole mission sort of thing, like it is in this film. They've brought on in all these scientists and brought in all these people, but then when they actually tell them something, they're like, nope. And it's like, don't bring an expert. It's the same with governments. They do this all the time. Bring in an expert, don't listen to them. So I like that in this film as well, that it kind of points that out. Other talking points? Visual effects?
Amazing.
Anyone want to talk about that? Have anything to say?
I think they've done it very, very well in that there wasn't too much like visual effects. That it wasn't like over the top in a sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think they did it, like, the visual effects were great. Like, the aliens looked very realistic. The spaceship looked very realistic. It looked like a very, like, alien, and when I say alien, I mean not terrestrial to this planet. Like, the metal or whatever it was made out of.
Like, the material,
Yeah, it looked like alien-tastic. You were like, what kind of metal is that? If it is a metal, like, you know what I mean? It looked good. The aliens looked real, but obviously not anything like we've ever seen before.
Yeah, not the typical.
And I like the sort of smoky background. Obviously, I've already said about their language. The way that appears is very cool visual effects.
I really like that.
Just the spaceship in general, and I love when they're all leaving, how they just sort of disintegrate into the clouds. Like that's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very cool visual effect.
Yeah, it's kind of like just how they basically disappeared with the clouds in a sense, which is quite smart.
Yeah.
In that it wasn't like a big spectacle in how they left and whatever else. It was just a quick fade away.
Yeah. Another point I wanted to bring up was the nature of the aliens. So obviously we only see Abbott and Costello, but from the talks that you sort of hear bits and pieces of, and like know how they've got the video calls going on in one of the tents. From bits you pick up from that, they all seem to behave the exact same. But I like how well natured they are, and they're very quiet as well. and they're more like they're just working with the humans, letting the humans do whatever they have to do. But I assume that's because they know the outcome of it.
Yeah.
Like they know what's going to happen. It's when they say like, "Oh, that we can't tell if they're communicating with each other. If they are, like, it's not on any frequency or anything that we can pick up." But they don't have to communicate to each other because they already know the outcome of this mission because their time's non-linear. They already know it, which is the sad fact that I have to bring up. That means that Abbott knew coming to Earth he was going to die.
Yeah.
But he did it because he knew that it was important, and sorry, I'm saying he, she,
them,
who knows? I don't
they.
even know. Who knows if these aliens are even gender based? Yeah, they. But Abbott's sacrifice just is even more important, knowing that they didn't know. Sorry, that they knew what was going to happen, but they knew it was important.
It's not even that. It's that the fact that Abbott actually willingly sacrificed himself to save both Louise and Ian.
I think it's predetermined. Like, it's going on the basis that everything's predetermined. Like, I don't know. That's just my theory, that everything's predetermined and they can't actually choose what's going to happen. They can just see what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like I said, follows like sort of Interstellar and same as Tenet sort of plot, which I think is the same sort of message in them, that it's predetermined. You can't actually change it, but you can see it, like the past sort of thing, and the future.
Yeah.
So that's my theory. I mean, it could be completely wrong.
But it's like what you said. She said it's a journey in which she's willing to take.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, she has a...
That's what I'm saying.
That kind of makes me feel like she has a choice.
Or she feels like she...
No.
Well, we can agree to disagree. I'm just saying, I think maybe things aren't...
the way that she says it, the way that it comes across, it feels like it's a choice.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I feel like she thinks it's a choice.
Like the way that I'm seeing it is like the choice of like a mother.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying I question whether it is, because who's going on a suicide mission if they know what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But then again, Abbott probably would, because, I mean...
he knows what it entails for his race in 3,000 years.
Yeah, so Abbott knows if they don't do it, then something bad's going to happen. So it could be that they could have chosen, might be that they can't. Who knows? Just wanted to say that based on the short story, I don't think either of you have read it, have you? No. I highly recommend you do, and anyone that's listening who's seen the film but hasn't read the short story, I would read it. It does actually vary from the book, but I mean, again, this is the same thing that I said about the town. Like, I'm not precious about the book, so because I've never read it, and I saw the film before I read the short story of this, so then I'm not precious about the short story.
Mm-hmm.
So the changes that they have made, I think, are like make the script better, make a better film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One
thing I do like absolutely love, is they changed the name Gary to Ian, and I'm like, good, because Gary is the worst name ever. Sorry,
wow.
Who's calling their kid Gary these days, eh? So I liked how they changed that to Ian instead of Gary. I think it made it better. But also, the daughter actually dies in an accident, not of a disease.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think. I'm sure there's some other like small changes. But the book is very good, very well written. So, sorry, not book, short story. So I would recommend anyone that's not read it to read it.
Okay.
I'm sure you can find it online pretty easily. Does anyone have any actually cons that they want to throw out from this film?
I don't think so. One thing I would say is that I feel like if you weren't paying attention, it may be confusing, but that's on the person watching, that's not on the film. Like, that was your choice not to pay attention or do something else.
I recommended this to a colleague who usually likes very intellectual films, and they watched it drunk and were like, what? I'm like, well, that's why you watch it sober. Like,
yeah, you need to pay attention to it. But it's not hard to follow either.
No, it's not.
No, it's not complex at all. Just pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Which seems to be a hard thing to do these days, apparently, for some audiences. Don't go on your phone, just watch the film.
The only thing I would say would be, it's not a bad thing to do with the plot, it's just that a lot of strings, in a sense, come together at the end.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you're not paying attention and you miss one of those strings, you'd be like, wait a minute, how have they come to this conclusion?
Yeah, but
you might get confused.
That's not on the film.
No, that's
Because
not
it shows
on the
you
film.
to pay attention. I
Yeah.
thought it was quite a satisfying ending, having it all
Yes.
come together, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's what it means. It's so cool.
Yeah, coming full circle. I do really like that about it. I
Yeah.
think that's really good.
Not something about blowing things up.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the fact that they've basically done this whole film based on language,
Yes. Yeah.
which is obviously what they've taken it from the short story. That's what it's all about. But this Sapper Wharf or Sapir Wharf, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, hypothesis, that I find very, very fascinating, which is basically, as Ian says, I'm sure in the film, I'm sure it's Ian that brings it up. Or he brings it up and Louise says that it basically, a new language can change the way you perceive the world. Which is exactly what happens to her when she learns heptapod. But it is a true thing. I think it was said something about like people in Australia. I don't know if it was talking about
Yes.
Aboriginal
Yeah.
people or just people that live in Australia. But apparently, if you put them, not everyone obviously, but most of them, if you put them in a room where they had no reference points to like where north, south, east, or west was, they'd be able to point it out because when they're speaking, they use direction in their language a lot of the time. So they wouldn't just be like in that room, they would like say a direction as well, sort of thing, or something like that. I'm sure it was Australia. I read this a long time ago, so don't don't believe me on this. Look it up. Sapir Whorf hypothesis. Very interesting. I think it's very cool. And I also saw facts that this is on Uber Facts. I don't know how much we can believe it, but if you think in a different language to like your native language, you will think more rationally. So if you have to make like a decision and you want to think rationally, you should do it in a different language. Obviously, if you know one, and apparently your mentality will be more rational while thinking in a different language. It's not your own. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And I really like that whole concept of the film. Thought it was really, really intelligent. And also I like the fact that it was like a strong, intellectual female lead for the film.
Yeah, I like
absolutely brilliant. Which you don't get often. And although there's a love story in it, it's very much at the back because they don't want you to really work out the big reveal sort of thing with Ian and Louise.
Yeah. So like the last 5-10 minutes you find out.
Yeah, exactly. And although you can see that they're kind of bonding,
yeah,
there's no real like focus on romance in that, and I like that because it just absolutely ruined the script. So I like that they went with that choice because I feel like lots of people always think, oh well, I have to have a love story or no one's going to be interested.
No, I'm like, no, you don't.
So the fact that it's not really said until the last couple of minutes of the film, I really like that.
Yeah.
Just want to point out as well, performances were all great, and particularly Amy Adams, who played Louise, Jeremy Renner, who played Ian, and then there's Forrest Whitaker, who played Colonel someone. What was his name? I mean, they called him Colonel a lot. I just remember that.
I can't remember his
Colonel
name.
G.T. Weber.
Weber, that was it, Colonel Weber. But I thought they were all great. Also, the guy that plays Agent Halpern, I feel like he always plays an idiot in everything. Michael Stuhlbarg, like he always plays mean people.
Yes,
most of the time.
But he's very good at it.
Well, this was what I'm about to say. Like he plays it so good, like you do end up hating him. I love that moment in it when I can't remember what he says, but she's like, "I have to talk to him."
Yeah,
and she's like, so done with him. I really like that. That's the thing. Like I love the interactions the characters have with each other. Like it's very good. Anything else you want to discuss on this film?
And I'm trying to think what my favourite scene was for it. I think it was when Louise goes into the spaceship and she meets Costello and actually talks to them, because I think the effects were really cool, especially with her hair. Like it doesn't look real, but at the same time,
the floating.
You would sort of expect it in like less gravity or whatever their gravity is. And it was just good to get her to talk to them and like properly after all the struggle to try and figure out what it is they're trying to say, and then finally find out what happens. And then I believe, if I remember correctly, that's when it cuts to the future when they're at the ball thing or the award ceremony or whatever it is for our book. And she talks to the general. And
that's a little bit after that scene, but it's like kind of the like events following that scene. Yeah, I love that scene. I think that's very cool. But this is what I mean about things being predetermined rather than a choice, because already in that moment that's happened. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I just think it's really good and really well done, especially with the tension of it as well. Where she's trying to phone him, and then it cuts back to her actually finding out what he says, and she's like, "Come on, like, what do you say?"
Yeah. Got Jeremy Renner playing the human shield.
Yeah.
Do you know what she actually said to the
Well,
general?
being fluent in Mandarin.
Do you want me to tell you what the actual quote is?
Yep.
In war, there are no winners, only widows.
Oh, that's a heavy quote. I like that.
So that's what his wife's last words to him were.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see why that would be so impactful, because that's basically speaking to the general in him.
Yeah. Well, also the fact that she knew his wife's dying words.
Yeah, but like it's the fact that his wife said that to him as both as a wife to him and to him as a
But also
general.
as his position, yeah.
Which kind of,
Yeah, I like
which I think would affect you, because that's basically saying, no matter what you do, you're going to end up having people who will be widowed because of your actions.
Yeah, like your actions have consequences.
Yeah, basically.
Just how you were saying how like Emma about being in the spaceship, like the floatiness and all that was very cool. Do you know what I thought? Like, no, see when she walks in, I'm like, that floor would hurt your feet like anything. But it obviously doesn't hurt their feet, because like they're not wearing any like sort of footwear or anything. They being the aliens, and do you know what I mean? It's like that spiky sort of crystally look to it. It's all uneven. I was like, weird floor, but I also like how weird it is.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be something that we would have guessed looking into it. So I think that was pretty cool. What about you, Scott? What's your favourite scene?
I'm trying to think. My favourite scene would probably be where she actually interacts with him on the glass, like the partition in between them, and actually writes, or like, in a sense,
when they make her write,
in their language.
Yeah, in Hepspod.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
where she actually knows it enough, like her brain knows it enough to try and figure it out while they help her in a sense.
Yeah. Do you know what I want to know? I want to know if that noise they make, like, because they make that noise and then she's suddenly able to write it, but I'm pretty sure I can't remember. I feel like she goes into another one of these what we think's a flashback, but actually turns out to be a flash forward. I think she sees something again, but I can't remember. I've seen this film so many times, I should know. But a lot of the time when they make that noise, she ends up having like a flash forward.
All right, okay.
Which makes me wonder, does that noise affect her in a way that it, like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but like it feels like the noise has some correlation with her being able to actually see the future. Because whenever they make it, she seems to have one of these little flash forwards.
Right, okay.
But I have no idea, but I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you, Scott, that scene is pretty cool when she actually is able to write in Heptapod. Yeah, like that's really cool. I think my favourite bit would probably just have to be the opening sequence. I think that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in film.
Yeah, it was
visually and the music as well that goes with it. The way that like you suddenly see it's like a very dark screen and you suddenly see the wooden panels on the ceiling appear. That's really cool. And then it comes into that the big glass window that she's got at the front of her house, or at the back of the house, I guess.
Back of the house.
It's got all that light, but also, I mean, it's stunning view. Visually, rather. Stunning visually. Great cinematography. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned, but the cinematographer is Bradford Young. But I like that opening sequence with the music and everything. It's heartbreaking as well to see like her go through this experience of the joy of having a child, bringing her up. Yeah. I like how it goes on to like the good moments. It's like her saying "I love you" when she's little, and it cuts to like or being a teenager, like a bratty teenager, being like "I hate you" sort of thing.
Yeah, that was good.
And then all of a sudden it's like, and this was the end, and you're like, what? Like, I mean, some way to kick off a film, like, oh, here's a baby, oh, now it's dead.
Yeah,
like it's a way to bring in your viewers right away. Like, oh my god, like this film takes no prisoners. So I really like that, and I like the fact that it circles back to that at the end of the film. So I know it's not one scene per se; it's more of a sequence of scenes. But I really like that. I think that's really cool. Other than that, I think it's just ratings. So, drum roll, we don't have one, but imagine one. We have our. I won't go through all the different things because we all agreed 5 stars all round for this film. So we have our first 5-star film.
Woohoo.
Which is very deserving, I think.
Totally.
Well deserved.
Couldn't take a point off it for anything. I understand that some people won't like this film because
it's not everybody's genre.
I think you're kind of, yeah. And I think, but see, I don't like sci-fi. I hate sci-fi, but I love this film because it's not really about sci-fi. It's about language. But I don't know. Like I feel like for some people, it's just boring. I think a lot of people would have liked to see some sort of engagement between like the Russians and the Chinese with the alien ships and everything. But obviously, we don't get that, which I liked. I don't care for big explosion scenes and stuff like that. I much prefer the film that we've got, which is very intellectual and very well written, very well directed, I would say. So we move on from a film with no time to a film that's all about time. We've got Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan. The screenplay is by Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan. And then one of the producers on the film, there was many producers, but one of them is Kip Thorne, who's a Nobel Prize winning theoretical physicist, which is why most of the science is all legit. There's a few moments that it breaks away from reality.
Because obviously science can only go so
It's
far.
a film. Yeah. Well, I think it was because like there's a lot of things that Kip Thorne made Christopher Nolan cut because they were like, it's not scientifically possible. Which kind of annoys me because I'm like, it's a film. Like, there's artistic license. Like, we don't need to be completely. But I guess if you bring on a physicist, they're going to argue with you. So it's just what you get. But I think one of the things he let him away with was the frozen clouds, because I don't think that's quite possible to have a frozen cloud in the sky. Because obviously, if like that mass, like that density, surely it would fall back down to the ground. But I like that scene. It's cool with the frozen clouds. So fair enough, I'd say. Also, music, Hans Zimmer, who's pretty much dominated the music scene in films for the last like 3 or 4 decades. Certainly the last 3. I don't think he did many big things in the 80s, but certainly since the 90s he's been doing big films.
The best.
He's the go-to guy. And cinematographer, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but Hoyte van Hoytema. Who knows?
I'm not entirely sure.
Yep. Who wants to kick off with our first impressions?
I'll go first.
Yeah, on you go.
Okay, my first impression of this film, I did not like it when I first seen it. But after watching it again, I got to actually like kind of fully focus on it in a sense and actually take it in for what it all is. Because at the start, I'm just like, oh, I can't be dealing with this. Because I was kind of a bit bored the first time I seen it. And I love sci-fi films, but the second time watching it with you guys and actually like fully concentrating on it and actually taking it all in, I actually really enjoyed it.
Basically what happened was I threatened Scott's life.
Near enough.
For this and a Christopher Nolan film, and then he decided on second viewing that was actually a really good film.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is just a story. Emma, this was your first time watching it.
Yeah.
You're the only one that was the first time watching it when we did our watch through. So what were your first impressions?
I went into it knowing absolutely nothing. I couldn't even remember the trailer, and I didn't watch the trailer before watching the film because I thought, nah, just go in brand new and just see what happens. I thought it was a very interesting premise and something that could absolutely happen in the very near future, given the current state of the world and stuff. The setup was very well done and it was well executed as well. And just the way they tied in time to everything, like the way they did it and the way they showed it was just excellent. Like you really got a feel for it that time was passing in a different way for each person. Like when they went on that mission and they'd been down there for, I think it's over an hour, but then they go back to the ship and it was something like 27 years had passed or something like that, and the guy's just waiting there for them. I just thought that was really good. Same with Cooper and Murph as well, how like the different times they interacted, or like when Murph was on screen and you obviously saw her getting older. I just thought it was really well done. Stunning visuals, and it didn't go too far-fetched for me. Like, it was still believable based on what they'd set up with the science and the explanation. It was easy to follow, and yeah,
even the bookcase of time.
that was a bit, when that popped up, I was like, oh, that's an interesting decision to make, but you know, it's a film, we'll just roll with it, we'll see what happens. And it tied.
I feel like I fought it at first, and then you just roll with it, and it makes it much better.
Yeah, I mean, you can critique things, and it's good to critique things, but this is still Earth. What was it, like 2060 or something like that? I can't remember the exact date. I was like, who knows what's happening in the next 40 years? It could totally happen, so we'll just roll with it.
Definitely,
The
yeah.
year is 2067.
Oh, I was right.
2067. Wow.
I was right. The 2060s.
Where does it say that?
It doesn't say it on the film. That was one thing I had as a con. That was like, it doesn't actually tell you how far in the future this is.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't say it was a con per se because it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't
This is the
matter.
world where you're living in as a
No.
viewer. Like this is what's happening.
Yeah.
But I did wonder because Donald says like in his day and age like there was a new thing every day.
Mhm.
It felt like there was a new thing made every day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, there must be some point far ahead because like in the future because that's kind of like what's happening in our generation.
Mm.
So I was like, Donald must be like our sort of generation.
Yeah.
Then again, that kind of thing's been happening for decades, but I feel like right now we're at the epitome of like consumerism. Like they're
Mhm.
literally making far too much stuff that no one needs.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I just
kind of gave a
figured that
telltale
out.
sign that we were some. You figured what?
It's kind of like how they said they discovered the wormhole.
Yeah.
Like they discovered it 48 years earlier, and that would have
Yeah.
been 2019.
Oh, cool. So that's pretty recent. Although the film was 2014, I want to say.
It was.
Yeah. So was that all you had to say for first impressions, Emma? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I sort of cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, my first impressions were I remember the first time I watched it, like I was just going along with it all, and like I said, like that bookcase scene, when it got to that, I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, nope, forget it, just keep going with it, like don't even question it.
Mhm.
And then because that was like at the very start of the sort of bookcase scene, it was when he had just kind of landed in it, but I hadn't realised where he was quite yet. I was like, what is going on? But then when you figure out what's happening and that he's actually Murph's ghost,
Yeah.
I was like, this is so cool.
Yes. That was amazing.
And this is what I'm saying about predetermined things, because he tries to communicate all over again, but he's already communicated this to her in the past.
Mhm.
So all that he's saying is what's already happened in his past, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Don't think about it too much. You'll just get confused.
This is like Endgame. This is when in Endgame they're all talking about like how time travel works. So like it's already happened in his lifetime. He's already left Murph. He knows the bookcase already says stay, and he still goes. So I don't know why he's trying. But then again, I don't think he has a choice because I think it's predetermined. He's got right that 'cause it's already happened.
Yeah.
But I like that whole thing, and I like how he basically gave like Murph information on the watch. That was really cool. But yeah, like I was just watching, I was just like, I'm so confused, but I'm so excited. Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
And then by then, I just like mind blown, as it usually is with most Christopher Nolan films. And I thought it was really cool. And like I said, I'm not a sci-fi person, but it's not really a sci-fi film. Like it's a film about a father and a daughter, and I think that's really touching. It's a good story. You can follow it because it's it's a family, regardless if you're a girl or not. Everyone has like their relationship with like, their mum and dad. And the fact I like at the very end how she says like I can't remember exactly what she said. Something like she knew you would come back or whatever. He's like because my dad promised me. Which is a touching little scene, and it kind of shows like this relationship that they have, because like in their household they're the only two that kind of think scientifically. Tom and Donald are very much like set in their ways, like they're just interested in farming now and nothing else. They don't think there's any point in like science or anything, but you can tell by the film that there's like science has had its downfall, which is something I wanted to talk about. Is like this film basically shows a world which is basically going into the past. I mean, if you go back a few hundred years,
not even that, like 150 years.
Yeah, not even that. Yeah, exactly. Science was very much seen as evil, and you were like penalized for even having thoughts of this sort of stuff. So it's the same as this. Like Murph gets in trouble at school for what is it? Shit. Oh, for the moon landings, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're talking about the moon landings, and basically they're like, "Oh, it's a lie. It was only to make the Russians waste billions of pounds on their space, not pounds, dollars, whatever. Basically, to make Russia go broke in this space race, and America just faked it all, sort of thing." And you can see, like, basically they've tried to wipe out any thought of like leaving the Earth or anything like that. Space travel, they've made it sort of evil in the eyes of the population, so that people aren't wasting money on it, and all they're gonna do is focus all their time on farming.
Yeah, they've kind of like
focus on,
propaganda
trying to survive like in this very hostile Earth that we find ourselves in. I like also I've put on a wee note about like how Donald says about the new things getting made every day, and it kind of shows like how consumerism and like mankind's basically made the earth inhospitable by our own actions. The stuff that we've done that's basically created the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
Which is the world that we're living in now is what the Nolan brothers are trying to say, basically. Like, this is not sustainable. We can't keep doing this. Which I really like. And also, just speaking about Donald and Tom, I've done a little note that basically they represent mankind's apathy towards like their fate. Like, they're just complicit in it. They don't even want to try and make anything better. They're just like, oh well, just gonna keep farming. Like later on when you see Tom as a grown up, he's stubborn as hell, doesn't want to listen to anything about Murph's like science, like her trying to figure out a way to leave Earth or anything like that. He's just like, Dad left us, get over it, like we're stuck here. And I keep growing my corn.
Yep.
And let my child die. Tom's a bit of an idiot at the end. I'm just like, Tom. I wonder if he ever went with Murph. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Because when they hug, like when she figures out what happened, that Coop, or her dad rather, was her ghost and everything, like she hugs Tom when she tells him. So I don't know if I do wonder, like, did he go on the ship that left Earth too?
Yeah, because he's never brought up at the end, like when the dad sees Murph again. He's never mentioned.
But he was older, so you would guess that he would be dead.
Yeah, he would have died first.
The spaceship. Yeah, you'd think so. But also, like, Tom very much represents like the world's distrust in science, which is basically taught to them. It's like, don't teach them anything but farming, and then they'll be wary of any science that's thrown at them.
Yeah,
which is like a huge propaganda thing, which is actually like done.
Yeah,
I think that's the whole thing of it. Is kind of at the start, it's all about propaganda.
Yeah, well, like when you see like that parent-teacher meeting with the teachers,
like science,
everything they know about their life, basically, they've basically just been turned into little robots that will just keep farming, and the hope that they'll be able to survive. Why would you want to survive on like a planet that's just all dusty and you're just eating corn? I mean, I would literally lose my mind. I also like that this film also has a strong female intellectual character in it.
Me too, yeah.
Same as Arrival.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, refreshing as a female. And I also like how Murph actually ends up being the protagonist of the story, not Coop. So yeah, like at the end when Cooper is on the Cooper station, and he's like, oh, it's nice of you to name it after me. And then they kind of laugh and they're like, it's named after your daughter. I thought that was like pretty cool. And it shows how like basically she's the hero of the story, not Coop, who you think it's going to be like all this time. Right. Other talking points. Cinematography and also like visual effects. I thought like the planets were very cool. Like when you pass Saturn, that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And then also the black hole is like very visually stunning.
Yes.
Like I love that. I've actually got on my mouse mat from a picture of that from Interstellar. And I liked like the wormhole. It was like a sphere, but it was like you could see through it. Like into the next galaxy or wherever they were, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was really good. That was really well done.
Well, the science behind it is quite like what they kind of broke it down into really simple terms. It's like folding a piece of paper in half.
Oh yeah, he does a little example of why, because Coop questions the fact that it's a sphere, and he says, "What do you think it would just be a hole?" So I thought that was really cool as well. Any other points anyone wants to bring up just before I go into any of mine?
No, I don't think so. I think it's all positive.
Yeah, just like what I said before about the time and how it's shown and things like that was very good. And it's a very satisfying film. It all comes full circle and things all tie together and you realise what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's a satisfying ending as well, to finally have it all laid out in front of you and you're like, right, okay, that all makes sense and all the dots are connected and everything like that. I
like how you find out the people that were talking at the start, they were talking about like the situation that they were in and everything, and then it relays back to him going to his, like, they've recreated his house, like farmhouse.
Yeah, the farmhouse.
And in it, the videos are playing. So that's actually, so the videos that are playing were from the space station and that are playing at the start. Which was really cool.
I like that.
I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure it was actual people talking about, I think it was during the Great Depression or something, was it not, in America, where they did have these big dust storms, and people were just packing up and leaving, because like obviously lots of towns went like completely broke. So I believe that's real people discussing like a real period in time, and the only one that's not is obviously the one that's Murph, the older actress. You see her at the start saying that my dad was a farmer just like everyone else, and then you find out that was Murph saying that. By the way, I also like that Christopher or Jonathan, I don't know who wrote the line, but their sense of humor is like waiting. I don't even know how many years have passed. It's like over 100 or something, is it not? Well, oh no, it's like 90 years maybe has passed since start to finish. But basically, Murph tells them that he loved farming, because the guy says that to him when he like takes Coop into his new house. He's like, "Oh, your daughter said how much you love farming," and he's like, "Did she now?" Knowing that he hated it. And I like how like they think that's hilarious. Like waiting 90 years for a payoff to a joke.
Yeah, that is excellent.
I mean, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I like that.
And he even says to her, "Hey, you told them I love farming," and she laughs about it like, "Ha ha ha!
Yeah,
you left me." The joke I played on you.
I know.
I really like the humor in this film, especially Tars. Like Tars, like the main, like I mean, Coop's funny too. Some of the stuff he says, but Tars is probably like one of the funniest people, and he's not even a person; he's a robot. But like the self-destruct thing, that's at the end, eh? When he says about the humor set, and he's like changing it, and then he says self-destruct, and he like lowers it even more.
Yeah.
But Tars is hilarious.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas I like how the robots have like their own little personalities, whereas Case is very quiet. And like they mentioned that to him, and he's like, "Oh, Tars does enough talking for the two of us."
Yeah.
I really like the first time I saw them, like the robot things, like no one is getting interrogated, sort of thing. I thought it was a bit cheesy in the first sort of scene, but then when you see them more, like you fall in love with them. As characters, like they do seem like actual people. So you feel for them. Like when he says like Tars is going to unload himself to lose some weight, you do feel sort of like, oh my god, no, Tars, and you're like, wait a minute,
you get attached to
just
them.
a machine. Yeah, you do get attached. So then, moving on, I think we have to talk about music. So again, as we already said, Hans Zimmer doing the music. And I think the music's very cool in the fact that a lot of the time it has a beat that resembles a ticking clock.
Yeah.
Which emphasises this whole thing, like time's running away with them. Everything's very time-based. They're trying to be as quick as possible so they're not losing so much time on Earth. But the one song that there's actually two, but the one I want to talk about is the song Mountains. So that's the one that plays when they're on Miller's planet. And they think there's mountains in the background, and then they find out they're waves. But basically, once the spaceship lands, like, Coop says, like, something like 7 years per hour, like, let's make it count. And then, as soon as he says that, this beat starts that sounds like a ticking clock, but it's actually slower. I counted, and I don't know if my count's right, so I could be slightly off. But I counted 48 beats per minute. But then the song slowly increases to 60 beats per minute, so that it's increasing to an actual like ticking clock. So basically, they're losing like a day per beat that you hear. So then you start to get this anxiety building up in you. Like you're like, oh my god, hurry up! Like because you've got this line back to Earth, like you're seeing what's happening with Murph and everything. You're like, come on, hurry up! Like you need to do this in time for Murph. So I like the way they do that, the way they build
tension,
the anxiety levels. Yeah. You're watching it, you are like on the edge of your seat. And then obviously it's quite a subtle little tune, and then you find out that when he says like those aren't mountains or waves or whatever, and then it just crescendos into this very loud music.
About the ticking.
Really cool.
Says, in Interstellar on the water planet, the soundtrack in the background has a prominent ticking sound. These ticks happen every 1.25 seconds. Each tick you hear is a whole day passing on Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it works out to 48 beats per minute at the start though, and then it increases to 60. I was counting it earlier. What was that on, Scott? What site was that on, just so we can show it?
That was on Reddit.
Reddit, okay.
Does it have a source though? Because...
Or that's just someone
saying
it.
I think somebody's done the maths in the comments. So somebody's actually done it.
So maybe you go on Reddit and...
So somebody's actually done the mathematics on it.
Yeah. So the other piece of music is when they're doing the docking scene. So when you've got Man trying to dock, and they're basically telling him, don't do it because you're going to blow the ship up, but he doesn't listen. And then they've got their dock to do while it, like, so basically
Well, it's
Is it
spinning.
called the Endurance? Yeah, there's ships called Endurance or something like that.
The
is it
main
not?
one, yeah.
So it's fallen into towards man's atmosphere, which will obviously make it crash if it does. So they've got to dock and use their boosters to thrust it up. So basically, again, you're given this, like, you're told, like, we need to do this in a certain amount of time, just like before on Miller's Planet, we're like, we need to do this very quickly, sort of thing. So you know time's running out, so you're already got that tension building, but then you've got this music that also sort of has a beat to it that resembles a ticking clock sort of thing. So it gives us anxiety. I think it happens, yeah. And I could be lying when I say this because I might be wrong, but I'm sure I heard ages ago when Dunkirk came out, they've got actual Christopher Nolan's pocket watch on one of the pieces, or maybe several pieces of the music. So you've got like the ticking, but it sort of follows the same sort of thing where it's very like, because it's time intensive. You know what I mean? They're trying to do stuff in that film as well within certain periods of time. They're rushing against the clock. So they basically put the clock into the score so that it builds it up anxiety, which is very clever. But like Hans Zimmer and Christopher Nolan do a lot in the films that they collaborate on. But it's very effective because obviously you don't have a ticking clock on the screen to see. Like there's no clock that you watch. So I think it's very effective. It builds up that anxiety and I really like it. Right. Anything else? Let me see. Oh, survival instinct. Let's talk about survival instinct and what an absolute a-hole man is. So, I mean, you've got to question whether you would do the same thing if you were in that situation.
Yeah.
I would like to think that I wouldn't. But man, then again, I think he had the hope that he still had enough fuel and time that they'd be able to go to different planets, like pick him up and then go to different planets. But that scene where you find out that he's lied about all this data, like sending all this data, saying that it's a habitable planet, and it's not. He's lied just because he realised that it wasn't, and he didn't want to get left there to die. So he lies and basically risks all their lives and risks the entire mission just for his thing. Just for it to save his own life. But then he has the cheek to say to Coop, like, oh, you're just thinking of your kids. Like, you need to think of the mission as a whole.
Yeah.
Then even he talks about survival instinct, which I like, is that basically, because Coop's got kids, his survival instincts extended onto them as well. So then he will fight a little bit harder to survive.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool, like, that sort of concept. And I like the idea, that man's made this horrible decision just based on the fact that he did not want to die on that planet, which is, I think, is a good thing to put into the film. Because, I mean, like I said, you would like to think that you wouldn't do that, but push come to shove, probably a lot of people would.
I know. I like the desperation you see in him trying to just survive
when they're in that fight scene. Yeah,
because it definitely took a turn when he tried to kill him. But then you see
when he's smashing his helmet off of his.
Yeah, you see the reason why, and that he's just desperate to survive in like the time of a crisis. So, yeah,
really cool. Yeah, I really like it. Absolute dick move, but
yeah, oh yeah. Like, this guy's dying on the floor and he's just chatting away. I'd be like, shut up.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to say as well, because remember I texted you during the film because you said like it reminded you of The Martian.
Yeah.
Like, Matt Damon.
Yeah.
I heard in an interview somewhere that Matt Damon said that he almost turned down the part of The Martian because he was like, I literally just, like, my last film was Interstellar, where I played a guy stuck on a planet by himself. He's like, I don't know if I want to do that all over again.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad he did, because The Martian, good film, and he's really good in that. But he's a much more likable character.
Yes.
Yeah.
My text was The Martian, alternative ending.
That was it, yeah.
It was really funny. I was really proud of that.
Oh, dear. It does have like major The Martian vibes to it.
Yeah.
Do you know what my biggest fear would be? That like I woke up, but like the person that woke me up was like some weird alien race that found me rather than mankind.
Yeah,
that would freak me. I think I'd just like take a bullet to the head or whatever, then deal with that. I'm just paranoid about aliens after that night terror that I previously mentioned.
That's fair, yeah.
Let's see what else to talk about. Performances. We need to talk about performances, but I think we'll do that in favourite scenes. So I'm going to start. Oh, but then I'm not going to be able to choose my favourite scene. So I'm going to give 2 favourite scenes and cheat. So one of them would be like I said, the opening was my favourite on Arrival, and so I think that's probably the best opening a film's ever had, in my opinion, that I've seen so far is Arrival. And the best closing I've ever seen in a film would have to go to Interstellar. I really like that finishing sequence, and I like the hope that it gives you.
Yeah.
How it's talking about, like, it's Murph basically doing the monologue, and she's talking about Brand setting up her colony, like, on our new planet, and seeing how she's alone and everything. But you see, like, Coop's obviously going to join her and help her.
Yeah.
And it's just very uplifting, because you start to feel like, well, this, because you see Brand, and it looks like it is a planet that we could at some point make habitable.
Mhm.
So it's uplifting to know, like, they finally found the planet, and Coop's on his way to go help her, and then obviously Coop Station, or Cooper Station, whatever it's called, won't be far behind. Obviously Murph won't still be alive. I also like the fact that, like, Coop turns up and then she's basically like, "Oh, don't stay here. Like, you shouldn't watch your own child die."
Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Horrible thing for any parent to go through. But it's like, she literally sees him for like a minute and then it's like, bye.
I know.
After all this time on you. But that scene, so that either have to be the closing sequences, or there's the messages scene, so where basically Coop gets a whole dump of lots of messages
By the way.
all in a row.
Yeah.
By the way.
that was my favourite scene.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Well, seeing as I've already talked about, like, the closing scene, do you want to jump in and go over that?
Yeah. I was going to say, just that's when you really see how much time sort of affected everything and how big a part it plays.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when he realises that his kids have aged like 23 years or so, but it's only been a few hours for him, and he was sitting crying watching those videos. I was like, oh mate, I'm going as well.
Yeah, I mean, we all know Matthew McConaughey can act, but yes, I mean, that's some serious acting in that.
Top notch.
Performance is amazing. Like, he's literally just crying his eyes out. He's also holding. I'm sure he's like holding himself together, sort of thing. Is he not? Is he not clutching on, like, you know what I mean? He's got his arms clutched against himself.
Yeah.
And I also like Casey Affleck in that scene, who obviously plays the older Tom. He's really good in that. That you can sort of see his desperation of, like, when he says, like, his wife says, like, I've got to let you go now, sort of thing. And also when he's talking about, like, his kid, like, he's saying how, oh, this is your grandchild, and then, like, in another message he mentions how, like, he's passed away and everything. So, like, it's a very, like, heart-wrenching, like, thing for both people on either end of the messages.
Yeah.
And I think they're both great at that. Also, later on, so when they're on Man's planet, when you see the message from Murph saying that Brand's died, and her message, I think that's also very heartbreaking when she's saying, like, did you know to Brand? And then she's like, did my dad know? Like, did he leave me here to die? Yeah. That's really heartbreaking as well. And Jessica Chastain's amazing in that scene as well. Yeah. So I really like that. The messages thing was really cool. Every time it sort of crept up, it was really good. Favourite scene for you, Scott?
I'm going to have to say when they're going along the accretion disk of the black hole. Like, when they're...
Absolutely, when they're just going into it.
Well, they never went into it. They were going along it.
Oh, Coop goes into it. No,
because he dumps himself into it. But they're skating along the accretion disk to as close to the event horizon as they can. I thought that was quite, like... It was like, oh my god, and awe as well. Because you actually get to see how tiny they are in comparison to this thing. And it just it just basically puts everything into perspective in a sense.
Yeah. Any shot that's, like, shows, like, this, either just the spaceship that they're on, like, that's very cool, the way it spins and everything. Visually very cool. But anytime you see, like, that, or, like, the black hole, or Saturn, just, I mean, Saturn's just a beautiful planet to look at anytime. I love when you see, like, images of that. So shots of that are just amazing, I think. But at the, like, it is all very sci-fi, there's lots of science in the film, but at the heart of it, like, it's a very personal story, and I love the characters that are in there. I really like Dr. Brand, or Professor Brand rather. Dr. Brand's Anne Hathaway, isn't it? So Professor Brand, so Michael Caine. So basically, when he admits to Murph, like, it was all a lie, like, there is no plan A, like, he already worked out that it couldn't be done. I think that's, like, a very, I don't know, it's like, it just gets you so on edge, the whole thing.
Yeah.
The way that he confesses it, like, he can barely talk. And then, like, she's trying to ask him questions, and then he's just going back into, like, do not go gentle into that good night.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I love that poem. Great poem by Dylan Thomas. And I love the way it's used in the film.
Me too.
But at the same time, when you've just told someone you've got no hope, oh, by the way, I sent your dad out to space with no hope of return. But basically, she's trying to say, like, did my dad know? Like, did he know this was going to happen? And he doesn't answer her.
Yeah.
it's just a very hard scene to watch, I would say.
Yeah.
Like it does, because you get so invested in the characters. So I love that. Anything else that anyone wanted to talk about when it comes to Interstellar?
No, that was it.
I think the whole thing was beautiful.
Yeah, visually stunning. The story's so good. The characters are so good.
Oh god, yeah. Jessica Chastain is always amazing actress.
Yeah, I really like Jessica
always delivers.
Chastain. I think
she always seems to let
probably in the top of her age group. You know what I mean? Top actors of her age group. She's really. I was quite surprised that John Lithgow is in this film. Like he usually does. Like I don't think I've ever seen him in anything other than a comedy. So to see him in it, I know he doesn't last very long in the film because obviously you don't see anything of him really after Coop leaves. Oh, that's another scene that I had to go over. Coop leaving when he leaves his daughter. So young Murph, who's Mackenzie Foy, she's really good in that scene for such a young actress. That's a really hard scene to watch as well. Because I mean, I can't even imagine having to do that.
I know, right?
As a parent, but I'm not a parent, so like I don't think I could ever see it from that perspective. But as a child of someone, like I couldn't imagine like my dad saying like, "Right, I'm off into space."
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see each other again. Might be the same age as me when I, when I come back. Like I can't even imagine being able to deal with that at the age that I'm at now, let alone being 10-year old.
Younger.
Because it's not. It's so hard because like. It might be goodbye. It's very much likely goodbye forever, but at the same time, you don't know if they're dead or alive because there's so much time between messages as well, like when they can actually send and receive messages. Like it's just unresolved. So I can't imagine like having to deal with that. But you can see like it's affected Murph in her adult life.
Yeah.
And that she hasn't had this like the whole situation hasn't ever been resolved for her. Like her dad, who she adored, left.
Yeah.
And she can't really deal with that. Like she never speaks to him, does she?
No, she doesn't.
Because it's Bran's message that she's telling Bran that her dad's died, and that's when like he sees her. Oh no, she does message him once. She messages him on her birthday and says, "Oh, we're the same age. Like when you left, and you said this would be when you would be coming back." So she messages him that once, which obviously breaks his heart to have to listen to. That's what I love about this film. It's not a sci-fi film. It's a film about a father and a daughter that have this great relationship, and also it puts a very like poignant tone on like what we're doing to the earth, and the fact that what we are doing isn't sustainable, and we don't want to all be just eating corn for dinner all the time. So change your ways, people. So nothing else? No other points from anyone?
Nope.
I think I'm all good. So. Only other thing to mention is that we do have a Discord group. So server. Is it server? Yep. Sorry, guys, I'm not very good with Discord. But Emma's got great with Discord, and they've set us up a Discord server. And I'll post an invite link in the details for this episode. So if you just want to join in there, we will be discussing films. You can give us episode ideas. You can give us your thoughts on episodes. You can give your thoughts on films that are coming up. So you'll actually be able to see quite a few films that are coming up on that Discord server. And you can put your own thoughts, reviews in there, and we could read them out if you want us to. If you give us a name to mention or a Twitter page to throw out or whatever, you can have your own thoughts and reviews on the episode. So all that's left now is our ratings for the film, and we have 5 stars all round again. So we've got 2 5-star movies.
Definitely worth it for this film. 5 stars, big time.
For both of them. Brilliant films. If you've not watched them, you shouldn't have listened to this podcast because we warned you not to. But if you have got to the end of this podcast and you haven't watched the films, go watch them.
Yes, go watch them.
And also just like to give credit to our music, which is The Descent by Kevin MacLeod. And I think that's everything. So next time, again, we don't have a drum roll, I wish we did. We are doing the film that made me fall in love with cinema, Jurassic Park. And then we're also doing Jurassic World, so it'll probably be a bit of a comparison episode. Spoiler alert, Jurassic Park's better. But we'll see you next time, guys.
See ya.
Bye.